My name is Benedict Orozco. I farmed for 40 years and I retired in 1983. And I moved into Beausejour fall of '83. And I'm still here. My dad come from Europe and he worked at Garson Quarries till he made some money, and then he thought if he went farming it would be an easier way of life than working in those quarries. So he come to this farm where my son Patrick is now. When I was a kid going to school, I walked 3.5 miles, walked. And I was only 7 years old. When we went sunrise to become the sunset back home. Yeah, things were not that great those days. Getting there and back, and we were all tired out, and there's homework to do. How could you do? And then there was help to milk the cows and separate the milk and put the cream away. It was just no time for nothing.
Well, we always had our chores to do because we had a mixed farm. There was livestock, cattle, pigs, chickens. And every day there was some feeding to be done. Nothing was mechanized. It was all manual labor. So me being the oldest son, and I guess I was kind of into it then. I didn't even mind doing chores.
Dad always favored me. He said, any place you, Benny, come over here. Benny, help me out here. Your dad favored me, and the other boys were good, but they had different ideas. They would want to go on their own. They didn't want to listen to no one. They liked to, and they started off other little jobs or something, but I was practically stuck with the farm, but I didn't mind it. I carried on with my dad as best I can.
My dad actually asked me a lot of things about, well, should we be doing this? When I was like 12, 13, 14 years old. It's like, because I guess I showed enough interest in it. And you're only 12, 13 years old, you're driving the combine for 2-3 hours on end. Well, Dad's going home, he's going to do the chores today. It was a great thing. As a kid, to be thrown this responsibility was just like, wow, somebody really appreciates you.
Mixed farming was our best way of making a living. Today, the young people try to go just grain, no livestock. But there isn't a very good sales for the grain. Its prices drop, and the expenses of chemicals and fuel is very high, or the gain, and the grain does not pay that well. So my son has to go out and work to make his payments on the land and other expenses. He's going 30 miles away from home, driving combines and swatters for the big farmers.
It's pretty hard. Like I've worked out before, and after a period of working out, it gets pretty hard to get up in the morning and go to a job that you're really not that crazy about. Well, there was a bit of a boom in agriculture there. Everything was getting into all this new technological era, and there's some pretty neat equipment. So, yeah, let's get into that a little bit. And after we've seen how much it cost and how little money we need to pay for that stuff, Well, this is all very fine and dandy, but we can't afford any of it. You see all these big fancy combines driving around. Well, there's big John Deeres. Well, they're all owned by John Deere, really. The farmer's just making payments on them. Who actually owns that thing? John Deere. So this technology can be fine and dandy, but it's a matter of trying to pay for it. But I guess that's where all this custom app stuff came from. All these sprayers, like these high clearance sprayers, are $200,000. So, man, they work slick, and you're not handling the chemical. Charcoal filtered cabs, sealed well. Beautiful equipment to work with. The machine does it for you, but surprisingly enough, these things do break down, and if you don't know how to override it and do it the old-fashioned way, I see a lot of young people sort of, oh, what do I do now? Well, do it manually. Well, I've never done that before. Well, that's how we used to do it. You can't lose all this. You keep some of that. I could see at that point that this grain farming was a real snowball where you needed to buy piles of land or rent it and then get all this big equipment to be able to do it, which I don't know if I could have even got the financing for. So I figured I'd take a different approach and look at some higher dollar crops, something that maybe pays more per acre. I mean, I don't need all these acres. So this is where the forages came into play. I looked at some different forages like bird's foot trefoil, and I seen it. They paid like $1.50 to $2 a pound, not per bushel. I said, well, geez, maybe you can grow lots of pounds per acre. So I tried a little bit of that, and I got my feet wet with it, and realized it wasn't as easy to grow as it sounded.
So me and him kind of made a arrangement. We got a leaf cutter bees, and we got involved in that. I put in maybe about $60,000 to get these bees going, shelters on the fields, and the building is like a refrigerated building to keep them over winter.
Well, nice Deeres and nice alfalfa plant, doing very well. If they're that big already at this point, we're doing okay. Some of these crops, like alfalfa seed, also a very high dollar crop, needs pollination, and it has to be insect pollination. So I decided, well, leafcutter bees was something that wasn't real big in the area, but had a lot of potential. And I talked to a lot of producers over the years that actually did fairly well, but lots of management. The inputs to get started were like maybe a third of what a new combine costs, and you could be up and running. This one that we're walking on was orchard grass for seed production, and this one was a Timothy grass. With the amount of crop protection products and insecticides and stuff that are being sprayed to produce crops, and also the way they're clearing the land, there's far less habitat for insects, like pollinating insects. We have to start raising them as well. So the old barn is actually there. See, I got half of my bees in here, and the other half in this one here. It's pretty good. Basically, you gotta go through every nest like this. My next year's bees. Like in one tunnel, as you can see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, probably 8, 9, 10 eggs. There's 10 bees in that one tunnel. This one's probably got as many as 13. And in each tunnel, only one female lays all those eggs in one season. That's a healthy leafcutter bee larva. We're definitely going to make sure that my children get really good education and they're up to date on what's happening in our world. Whether or not any of them will farm is very questionable. I don't really want to encourage them into that totally, particularly I guess from the financial aspect. or the amount of work that you have to do. It's like it's kind of a thing that's got to be in your blood. You got to really love it because it's not. We're not really doing it for the money that much. Although you always have in the back of your mind, oh, I gotta get that big alfalfa crop's gonna come in one day, and I've had one. It was only one field. It wasn't my whole farm, but it was a phenomenal amount of money off of small acres. I paid a whole lot of debt off with it and got myself back to square one again. And now I'm waiting for the next one. And it'd be, man, if you could get that 2-3 years in a row, you'd just about be out of the woods. The way things are developing so fast and changing, I'm not exactly sure where it's all going to be at by the time my son is, say, 15, 16 years old, or my daughter, even, well, in 10 years, my daughter will be 16. It's hard to say where it's going to be by that point, because I'm involved in it directly and I can't keep up to it. It's got to be massive scale or it's not going to be viable. Well, to go on a massive scale on something when you're starting out from virtually scratch, I don't know where you get the kind of cash flow to do that. And if you want to go and borrow that amount of money, should you not be looking at other aspects of business that will take that amount of money that maybe are much more profitable? I mean, I'm pretty much a workaholic on my farm, but I don't consider it work. I consider it life. Hello, Dad. Can you hear me? I'm on the cell phone. Sometimes you can't hear anything. I'm on that shoe phone there. You can't hear anything.
Patrick is one of those guys like to be educated and know, and he'll push his son into the same thing. He'll be educated, he'll go to university, and he won't take interest in the farm. The farm might get dissolved totally.
My name is Kelly Taylor. I farm in the Oak Lake area. Well, the way my dad started, he was raised a mile east of here where his father homesteaded. He came up from Ontario and homesteaded, and of course my father was raised there, and after he got it through his schooling, he actually built road with the horses in the early 1900 or late 1900s, 1919 to 1934. He built 96-mile road with the horses. So he had a taste of the road work and construction. He continued to build road until the Depression hit in the 30s, where he chose to sit idle and basically wait out the Depression. But during those times, it just got so tough that he had a chance to buy this farm, so he managed to put the dollars together and buy this farm as we're sitting on today.
We own our own home. We have our own space. We lack nothing. I guess there are grander things, but it's not something that we're concerned about. I remember the first time Kelly came home and said he'd bought a Charolais bull. It was quite a change for his father, but a new beginning for Kelly and for the herd here. So each time there was a change. There was a time of acceptance that needed to happen, And that happened again when we bought when our first herd of buffalo.
We had cattle up until about 4 years ago, and I did get started into that for a while, but we moved on from that and got right out of the beef industry and decided to focus solely on the buffalo and elk.
We've had some interesting times trying to get our elk industry in place. We had no problems with the bison industry because the bison industry is a domestic animal and it fits into the same category as the cattle. So we basically can raise and do what we want. But with the elk situation, why, we lobbied government for 18 years, and I was one of the ones that lobbied government for 18 years to put this in place. And I'm glad we stayed with it. There were several of us that did, and we've got an industry here for the province that's second to none.
Our second son, oldest son, he worked at different professions and found that it was not a healthy situation. He worked as a mechanic, and the fumes and the environment just were not acceptable. So he came back and spoke to his dad and said, "I want to do this." And we were glad that he made that choice, and I think he is too.
I think making the decision to come back to the farm has been the biggest challenge I faced. We run into snags and crossroads all the time. I guess it's just part of the industry, and you have to learn to live with it and find ways to get around it.
I said we've had good times and we've had bad times, but I guess our worst case scenario would be where we had a good crop of grain when I was working with my father, and it was in July. There was wheat out in head, and there was heavy rain and up the valley, and we had to haul our equipment all out of the valley course, and we were completely flooded out, and to see this wheat go under after the work you'd done in sowing this, why, that hurt. That had to be one of the worst.
You simply take these things as they come, but for some, this has been a very disastrous year, and I hope there's not any more of them, because it's a great place to be on a farm. It would be sad if some had to leave their spot, but that may happen. For Kelly, it would be devastating. His feet are so deep in this soil here. They're like roots on a tree. He would have great difficulty. The strength, there are strengths in this town of Oak Lake and surrounding community, is everyone knows each other, and we know everyone's little idiosyncrasies. So if this fellow drives a little bit too much to the middle of the road, we all allow for it. No one gets upset about things like that, and that makes a town strong and caring. I think farming people on the whole have got to be the biggest gamblers there are, and they stick with it, and they are, thank God, for people in the city going to go and seed and grow whatever next year.
This is our home base, and it means a lot to us to keep it in the family. It's been in the family, like I said, since 1929, and we hope it continues.
I think the biggest challenge is trying to take over the farm. Actually, it's not a way of removing my parents from the farm by any means. It's just trying to find a way for my brother and myself to just slide in behind the driver's seat a little bit and just being able to take over the operation slowly year by year.
I think our greatest resource here on the farm personally is clean soil and clean water and clean air. And without those three, we are in grave danger. I hope the surrounding farms are as equally concerned about it. And if they're not, they should think about it. Water will become more valuable than oil or gas. You cannot survive without either one. If your soil is not capable of growing any longer, how long can you chemically treat something like that? Those are concerns for me, and I hope they're concerns for others.
The whole family worked on the farm, in the field, in the barn, with the animals. Now it's more industrial. You can't have 10 chickens, 3 goats, and a cow anymore.
Like Michael now has beef cattle that he keeps here, and he grows hay for them. In the fall, when he goes down south to do his baling contracts, we have fall calving, so I'm the one that watches the cows and makes sure that the calves get here. If a calf decides to be born backwards or gets stuck on the way out or whatever, then I'd have to call a vet or call a neighbor in to help pull the calf.
The custom work we do is for extra income. Is brought up to work hard and go when the sun shines, and that's basically what they're looking for, them kind of guys, and guys that can keep themselves going, that can fix the machinery without calling other guys in, and be kind of self-sufficient in the field. And that's what we learned as we were growing up, to keep yourself moving. If you're not moving, you're not making money, so. My childhood with my father was work, basically, and some play, but it was mainly work, and I think that's the way he was brought up. He didn't know any better. When it was time to have fun, it still related back to work.
Michael was only 20, what was he, 20 or 21? And I mean, you're an adult then, but still you're in between. And he, I don't know if he really did. He farmed, but it was a lot of headache for him. He had a lot of bad times with it. It's a lot of stress. We had dairy. Dairy was the worst. That was terrible. I did not like the dairy.
We used to walk through here to pick up the cows, the milk cows years ago. We used to walk through this bush and try and listen for the bell and go in that direction and go through those little paths, and sometimes we found them right away and sometimes it took hours. Wasted a lot of time finding cows. That motorbike was a great boom. My Harold used to go on horseback.
The day Harold died, it was a very sudden thing. He chose to do that, and it was hard for us to understand, although, you know, he had been ill for about 5 months, and I guess I was the only one that really knew it, because he told me, you know, many times that he didn't want to live. I guess I had to start over with how I thought about things, and also how I worked at the farm. Like there were not enough hours in a day to get through all the things that had to be done, and then at night you'd say, well, is this all there is to life, you know?
That was like the farm going down, and didn't think I could carry it, type of thing, you know. And it was sudden, wasn't ready for it, and I was growing up, probably at 20 when it happened, but really had to grow up. You know, I had nobody to rely on but me and Mom. Neither of us could have ran the farm without each other.
Well, it's now 14 years later, and we've sold the dairy. I've retired, and Michael is carrying on with the farm. And it's really been a hard 14 years in making decisions. He didn't know whether he wanted to do it or not.
My son is interested in, basically, he likes the cattle, but really likes the mechanical part of the farm. The tractors, the balers, we go to farm shows, and he's into everything.
Long hours, very long hours. I don't think he's too keen on that yet, but he does in the summer, spends long hours in the field, and I think he's too young, but my husband says no, he's not. So I want them to leave when they're done school, just even if it's for like 3 months, 6 months, whatever it takes. I don't want them to come right straight into farming. I want them to see there is other opportunity, but the farm is here for them if they want to come back.
This country is the land between the lakes, the interlake, and it's a hard life. If we worked as hard in southern Manitoba as we did here, we would have been millionaires.
Money isn't everything. It is, but it isn't. It can buy you happiness, but there's also peace of mind that doing a good day's work, you know, and looking back and saying, well, that's my land, and I did it on my land, and it's for me. You know, that's a good satisfaction feeling.
To where we are from nothing. I started out with a $200 tractor that the neighbor at around where my dad farmed had driven into the bush. I resurrected it, and that was my first power unit. When I started out, my tractor had steel wheels with no cab. You just hung on for dear life because the steel wheels would hit stones. It was pretty rough. That's many years ago. Between Paul and I, we have about between 3,000 and 4,000, closer to 4,000, I guess, acres of arable land.
In the mid-70s, when I was through my school years and through my university years, that's when agriculture was in a buoyant time, and of course that being an impressionable time for anybody in your early 20s, that's the career I chose. As a business, it has its ups and downs. Agriculture is a very cyclical business. It's booming and it's bust. One of the things that you learn, and this is what I'm learning as I go along, is that you have to anticipate a bust when you're in the middle of a boom, and anticipate a boom when you're in the middle of a bust. There's no better feeling in the world than having a very good crop come off early and good quality and good shape and buoyant prices at the same time. And in 22 years of farming, that has happened actually 2 or 3 times, and it's a time of extreme elation almost. But you don't get more than 5 or 6 cracks in a lifetime at that.
I guess perseverance is the thing. You don't give up because you got a bad year, and that's farming. It's an independent lifestyle, and you can't just drop your tools and walk away like somebody in the labor market might. Doesn't like a job, he can just go and get another one.
I keep looking for the fellow that held a gun to my head and said, "Paul, you have to farm," and I can't seem to find him. I catch glimpses of him periodically in the mirror, and when I turn around, he's gone. One of the constant frustrations in this business is the level of government involvement in it. They seem to reach in and try and control and direct very large portion of what not just farming but the whole agricultural industry is endeavoring to do. If the government just stood back and took a much more hands-off approach and focused us and helped us focus on what it is the consumer is looking for in terms of its of the food supply, we would get out and produce what it is the consumer wants.
There's advances made in plant science and in the equipment and the way we do things, and each one brings an increase in production. The sad part of it, it doesn't always increase our profits.
I do have, in addition to grain production, another business that I run that's pretty closely tied to grain production.
He is well versed in the grain marketing. That's his forte. He's good at it. And also he can work it into his farming operation. He's got it dryer there and does our own shipping, and yeah, I think there's a place for it. I really do.
I think my biggest challenge in the future is being able to run our farming operations without my dad. He's pretty much an integral part of the day-to-day work and business of running the operation. And while we don't discuss things a lot, we understand each other to such an extent that we don't need a lot of discussion, and we just carry on, and we know what each other's thinking, and we do what we need to do. There's going to be a little bit of a gap, I think, between the time that he leaves and the time that perhaps my son would come into the business, where I will probably be either without an older generation or a younger generation assisting in the operations of it.
Well, oh, there's a truck. I guess there's two. Those are canola seeds. They're very small. They're about 2 millimeters in diameter or less. And they're little. I think it's nice going with my dad a lot because, like, before I hardly ever saw him if I wasn't farming with him. I've learned how to do a lot of things from my dad. It's kind of hard to name them all. I often go trucking with him down to the office here in town because he owns one of them, and then I help with the work around there, and I weigh him on the scales, and I take tests of the grain.
My son is only 10 and has a keen interest, of course, in farming and the busy nature of it, and wants to be around and helpful and participating at all times. And I certainly don't discourage that. I involve him as much as I can.
I'm reaching the point maybe where I shouldn't be farming anymore, but things are kind of downhill at the present, so it's rather disappointing after a lifetime. Not that I'll be in the poorhouse or anything, but you kind of like to end your year or your lifetime of work with a little bit of pizzazz, which isn't happening.
That's just what goes through your mind on an almost daily basis. Is now the right time to make a change, make a switch, cash in the chips, so to speak, and redirect them in another effort, whether it's a McDonald's franchise or a mattress manufacturing plant. I mean, that's the thing. What else should I do?
I made my decision to do this as my lifetime occupation, or at least it's turned out that way. But even for Paul, I guess it doesn't have to be. I'm sure he could do something else if it had to be. But I know his heart is in it, and if that's what he wants to do, I'm here to help as long as I can.
Well, I might not stay on the farm. We're pretty poor, and I'd rather not. I'd rather help my family with the money.
Owen, he is very interested in everything that goes on, and I would wish that if this is what he wants, that it would be a good life for him and he could carry on right here. That would be my wish. But not to suffer through it. I wouldn't wish that on him or anybody else.